Hey everybody, welcome back to In My Queer Body. Thank you so much for joining us today. In this week's episode, we are joined by Love. Love, thank you so much for meeting with me today. Why don't you go ahead and start us off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Dakota. My name is Love. I'm 22. I live in Boston, and I'm trans-masc, non-binary, trans man, really whatever. Happy to be here and talk about what I'm passionate about.
All right, let's go ahead and just jump into the questions just to get the ball rolling here. Would you say that your gender identity has affected the type of care that you've received in the medical field? Like, for example, before you ever came out, did you experience any forms of discrimination or anything like that? Or was it only after you came out and started presenting differently?
I feel like I didn't experience discrimination before I came out. Things were a little weird, like if I was talking to my doctor about how I didn't need condoms because I was in like a lesbian relationship, before I realized I was trans, that was like different sometimes. But I wouldn't call that discrimination. It kind of only started after I started, transitioning and looking for that kind of help and being a different person that they aren't really familiar with how to help, I guess.
Right, so it's not really like they're being intentionally malicious. It's just almost like they're uneducated in a sense.
Yeah, and might disregard you if you seem like too much of something that they don't understand.
Got you. And you said you're from Boston, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's considered like a pretty liberal city. In the previous episode that I recorded with my last guest, we spoke a little bit about how a lot of the times cities that are labeled as like really liberal or labeled as like queer safe havens, where a lot of queer and trans people kind of like flock to, they end up falling short and failing to meet people's expectations of like how welcoming and how good the queer community is there. Would you agree with that in terms of Boston? Do you feel like although Boston is considered liberal, it doesn't really rise to the occasion?
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I really agree with that in the sense that I think Boston has, or like Massachusetts and like those northeast coast states, there's a lot of rich conservative old people.
Oh, perfect.
And like generational wealth
right
there that is a big contrast to the like liberal and queer like movements. It's kind of like a culture war. I remember like in my hometown, like when I was going through high school, there would be like a protest for like Black Lives Matter, and then across the street, like it's a super small town that I grew up in on the South Shore of Boston. Same crowd across the street of different people just like shouting the complete opposite stuff, like back the blue, like Blue Lives Matter, like stuff like that. So it's always like one family's front yard will have a sign that says like, we believe in science and like you are who you are as you come. There are no borders. And then next door, America backs the blue and like Trump 20, like it's a big contrast. I completely agree. I think the more loud one side is, the louder the other side gets too. So
yeah, it's kind of like an echo chamber. Everybody just wants to be louder than the other. I can relate a little bit to the different crowds that you see. I grew up in a small town in Texas, and it's not exactly a liberal city, but it's not really like a crazy Republican city either. And same thing when you drive through where my parents live, their neighborhood, it's you look across the street and there's a sign for like Beto O'Rourke, who is a very liberal guy running for governor, and then you look on the other side of the street and there's signs for Greg Abbott and Trump 2024 signs and stuff like that. So I guess maybe it depends on the area of the liberal city that you're living in. Of course, anywhere you live, you're going to find differing opinions and things like that. It's always interesting to me how from an outsider's perspective, you can think that a city is this liberal, safe space, and they must be so supportive, and they must have so many resources for queer people. But then when you speak to somebody who actually lives there, they have no resources or very limited resources, and they still face the same problems that you would face in a more conservative area.
And if there are resources, there's also like backlash from, like the more queer culture and life that exists in Boston, the more like homophobia that you will face.
Yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense in the sense of like I understand why it happens, but it makes sense. Whereas like I don't know. I guess my biggest issue with things like that is whenever people say that we need to be louder and we need to be more like in people's face, because the louder you are, the more acceptance you'll get. Like the more people will get used to us being present and visible. I always kind of cringe a little bit at that, because it's true. It's like you said, people like the louder you are, the louder the other side gets as well. Like you said with the protests.
Yeah. I've had a lot of conversations with like random cisgender guys who are like, I've never really understood this whole trans thing, but like, you're cool, like I get you. And it's like they're only accepting me because I'm very I guess down low about it. If I'm like as down low as I can be, like
right,
still get misgendered a lot sometimes, like, but they're like more receptive. I know for sure people that don't really respect trans people, they're a lot more receptive when you kind of talk to them on their level. I don't know.
Yeah, because
not make any more sense, but
it's like, have you seen how people treat? I don't know if you're like big into the Twitter discourse or anything like that, but have you seen like Blair White, for example, or Buck Angel on Twitter? They're so accepted. I use that term very loosely, but I feel like cis het people tolerate them so well because they basically like grovel at cis people's feet. Like they're one of the good ones. That's what cis people like to say about those two people, which it's funny because in our eyes they're assholes, like they're jerks. Like,
oh my god, so cringe.
Yeah, I don't know, it's very wishy-washy, but I guess
the closest thing I can say to like trans people kissing up to, or like just being anti-trans for the acceptance of cis people I feel like they're just bootlickers.
Yes, that's the term that I was about to say as well. I was like, I don't know if I should go ahead and step out and say that, but yeah, let's go ahead and call it what it is. It is bootlicking, like, in a sense.
On the cock of the patriarchy.
Literally riding it.
It's we're talking
freak status out there. But since you live in such a liberal area, I feel like a lot of people would assume that you wouldn't really face any sort of barriers when you're going for queer healthcare or, searching for HRT or top surgery or anything like that. So why don't you tell us about some of the health issues or some of the barriers that you have faced?
Well, yeah, I thought the same thing when I started looking for HRT and getting access to that. I thought it would be super like freeing because finally I would be out as transgender to my healthcare providers, and I just assumed that would go super, super well and have no issues at all, and that's never happened, and I don't know why I thought that. My problems would go away when I came out. They just seem to multiply, but that's okay. Obviously with HRT, like my life is way better, we all know that. HRT saves lives, but yeah, the issues I face mainly are like just my identity feels swept under the rug a lot of the time because medical providers, they want to be fast, quick in and out. This is your birth name, this is what's on the paperwork. I didn't like not thinking about you and how you feel or your pronouns. It's kind of just like, oh yeah, you need this because of this. Like, yeah, I don't know, boom, boom, get out as fast as you can. But
right, it's very like
anyone should receive.
Yeah, I understand. Obviously, when you go to a hospital or a healthcare clinic or what have you, you want things to be clinical to a degree, but you also want to be treated like a human being with feelings. Like, you can't just. I feel like a lot of times healthcare providers, like you said, just kind of read straight off of their patient health charts. They don't really look up and look at the actual patient and talk to the actual patient. They just kind of go based off of the data that they have on the sheets in front of them.
The
But
data isn't correct. It's like,
Yeah. I mean, I think, in my opinion, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why, at least for me personally, I have avoided healthcare in the past. And for those of you at home who aren't sure what healthcare avoidance is, it's literally just whenever you decide to delay or avoid healthcare altogether just because you fear discrimination and things like that. But probably one of the biggest reasons that I have avoided healthcare in the past is because of that same reason. Like, I just feel like some doctors and nurses and people like that are, I don't want to say uneducated, because I understand that they went to school for this, but as far as trans care, like trans healthcare goes, they are a little bit incompetent. Like, they don't really understand how to talk to us, how to treat us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I most recently went to an appointment to get medication for my skin, like my acne that I've gotten from being on HRT.
Right.
And it was the first time the person that checked me in didn't acknowledge my gender or my name or my pronouns, but when I sat down in the room and the nurse came in, she was seemed like early mid-20s, and she's like, "Hi, love. By the way, what are your pronouns?" And I told her, and she's like, "Okay, thank you." And I was like, holy fuck, like, where have you been all my life?
Yeah, right? You're like, finally somebody.
I didn't know how it could feel to be treated how I want, and that was only one time, and I've been on HRT and like presenting as a man for like HRT 7 months, but presenting as my gender for like 2 or 3 years. And
right.
Yeah.
Which is I don't know. I wish that I could make healthcare professionals who maybe don't understand why it's such a big deal that trans people are making such a fuss about healthcare and everything. I wish I could make them feel themselves, how it is when you go to a hospital or a clinic and they're misgendering you and they're dead naming you. And then when you have, like in your example, when you finally have one provider who asks you your pronouns, asks you your name, or uses your name that you put, in the preferred name spot on like the forms you have to fill out and shit. Like, the relief that you feel is just unmatched. And I wish that I could make them feel that too, so that they would kind of understand.
Yeah. There's a lot of trust that comes with that respect, for sure. Because when you don't have that, it's very isolating, and it kind of creates a little bit of panic inside me. Like, okay, if you don't know or care enough about me to know my name, and literally the fact that I'm a man and not like a she, her, or a girl, like, is a big thing.
Yeah.
If you don't care about that, how can I be sure that this surgery, this dental procedure, this like whatever you're doing to my body with my strange consent, how do I know this is gonna go right? Like,
yeah, like, how do I know, especially especially when it's something like as big as where you have to maybe go under anesthesia, for whatever reason. Like, how am I to know whether or not you're going to give me the care that I think I deserve? Maybe you think that I don't deserve, a great deal of care or a great amount of, caution when you're literally going under the knife, So yeah, it's scary almost. And I do agree that I'm much more likely to go back to a provider who was respectful of my identity and was using my name and my pronouns than I would, go back to a provider who treated me like dog shit, basically.
Yeah, 1000%. Completely agree.
But I guess kind of building off of, that topic of, building trust with healthcare professionals and things like that, how do you believe that the medical field is failing the transgender community? And like, what do you feel like maybe not only medical professionals, but also professionals in other related fields like law, insurance companies and things like that, what do you think they could do to try and prevent things from happening in the future?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Thank you. Yeah. How are they failing? I'll start with that. I think they're really failing with just lack of education, and it's hard to work towards establishing like a baseline of transgender healthcare education across like all healthcare schools, you know,
Right.
because it's so politicized now. Like, should we be teaching our children what this is? Like,
Yeah, that's also very true.
everyone cares about that discussion and debate. So I don't know when people are going to all understand and know, like all healthcare professionals and people studying are going to be up to date with us in the way that they should. I think people can only get up to date and learn if they ask for it. Like if they're specializing in trans healthcare, if they have someone close to them that's trans, that really matters. They want to educate themselves. But if it's nothing they've seen before, nothing they've encountered, which they're going to, because we're growing in numbers, babe. If it's nothing they've seen before, it's nothing that they'll prioritize. And I think that things need to change because people our age know what HRT is. Like even cis people, if you say HRT, they'll understand and follow you in what you're saying.
They have at least a basic grasp.
Yeah, but even someone like 40 years old, this man I talked to, a colleague of mine, he had no idea it was possible for you to take hormones and like transition. He was like, what? You can do that? Like, I've never heard of that. And I was like, dude, like...
He must be like living under a rock or something.
Yeah, I was just surprised at how little knowledge there is with the general public of all ages, I guess. But like, especially older than millennial or Gen Z. Like, damn, like, we're really hiding in the shadows. Like, we've been forced to hide, and we're coming out now, which is great, with more acceptance in the past 20 years, I'd say. But yeah, it's uncomfortable to feel like you have to hide stuff that you're going through. I don't know. I'm getting on another tangent. I forget.
No. You're making complete sense to me anyways. And it kind of circles back to the stuff that we were talking about in the beginning of the podcast. Like, we've been forced to hide in the shadows for so long. And then now that people are starting to feel a little bit more accepted, a little bit less afraid to come out, you know, obviously there's a lot of young people coming out as trans, and older people too as well coming out. You know, I've seen some really heartwarming stories online about 60-year-old people, you know, and older coming out and saying like, yeah, like it's really nice, but there's also a downside, like we said in the beginning. With the amount of people that are now coming out and being accepted, there's also a crazy uptick in bigotry and transphobia in the media. You know, people like J.K. Rowling and what's
it's
that?
all over, everywhere, everybody.
Yeah, it's insane. And like I posted a video,
that type of Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, like those right wing like talking heads,
bro, like Joe Rogan and people. Don't even get me started.
So bad. I watch like some like left wing commentators that comment on these right wing people, and every time I can tolerate every like crazy topic they discuss,
right?
But once they get to the transgender issues, I have to skip through it because it just really hits way too close to home for me that people exist on this planet, in this country, that think these things. Like, that we are mutilating our bodies, that like we are like AFAB people, or just like, I don't know, there's so many bigoted thoughts out there against.
No, I completely agree with you. It's honestly so crazy. And even some of the more left-leaning like commentators out there, like some of the podcasts that I've listened to and some of the YouTube videos that I've seen, even people who claim to be liberal, who claim to be like left-leaning, like, even sometimes they will say things a little out of pocket about trans people. And it's like,
I don't like when people make blanket statements like, oh, trans girls this, trans guys this. Unless it's a trans guy or a trans girl saying it about our culture and community, because that's like prerogative. But if people like oh yeah, like trans girls always did, like, I don't know, I hear that sometimes when people think it's a safe space, like cis people, and they think that they can just like have a back and forth with me about that. And I'm like, oh no, because my sisters are not all the same.
Right. Everybody's different. Like, you're just we're going back to stereotypes, you know, like.
Yeah, and I'm sick of that. I don't need more of those.
I guess they get a little bit too comfortable when they feel like, you know,
it's. Many a times I've been like the one trans friend to like
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've definitely been there. And some of this stuff, it's like you said, they get a little too comfortable and then they start making blanket statements, making assumptions. And
Mm,
it's like, where is this coming from? Like, why?
yeah. It's like few too many cis guys will send me the TikTok where it's like me checking the trans guy's backpack in the locker room for extra testosterone. And I'm like,
Jesus.
okay, this is funny,
Oh,
but like actually stop because you keep asking me if I can shoot you up with testosterone and I'm not going to do that. Like,
oh my God.
I'm sorry.
That reminds me, I posted a TikTok a while ago, probably like last month or so, of my like shot day routine, right? And I showed like my testosterone and how I do my shot and all that stuff.
I watched.
And I posted it just as like a way to show other trans masculine people and people who take HRT, you know, my little shot day. I just thought it was a cute little video.
I post
Harmless.
when I do my shots.
It blew the fuck up, right? We're talking nearly 2 million views. And the reason that it blew up so big is because it made it to Gym Bro TikTok. And for the next month and a half, even
like,
now sometimes.
Dakota with your gym bro body, like
Yeah, right. Like I'm so buff. Like I'm absolutely shredded. No, seriously. But my comments blew up because all of these cis guys, all of these gym bros were coming in my comments and being like, "Oh my God, how are you using tren? Like, how can you be so open about using steroids?" And all of my comments, they were body shaming me. They were body shaming me and saying, "You've been on T for 5 years, but you're still so small. You're still so scrawny."
They thought you were cis.
Yes, they dead ass thought I was a cis man posting.
Trans men are so like hidden, like people don't know that.
No, like I don't know. I mean, I guess like passing that well is a privilege, you know, I will admit, you know.
Yeah.
But it was so shocking to me how quickly people just assumed that I was a cis guy posting about taking steroids on TikTok. I had to literally, I made like 2 or 3 videos in like response to several comments saying like, look, like I'm not a bodybuilder. Like stop asking me if I can share my testosterone with you. Stop asking me if I have any tips for getting tea on the black market. I don't get it from the black market. I get it prescribed to me because I need it.
Yeah, and even like shit, man. That's so gnarly. That's super funny, honestly, that like the world is so binary that even you showing, hello, I'm trans and I'm doing my T-shot, majority of people on social media think that this is a cisgender man just shooting up T. Like, they don't even think once that this person could be trans.
It was one of those things where like I just had to laugh because if I didn't laugh, I would get so like overwhelmed and just like
with anger, frustration. I get that.
Yeah, it was honestly like so crazy. And I think, you know, I think the accessibility of HRT right now, or maybe not right now because of all the legislation that's been passed recently where they're blocking trans healthcare and things like that. But in the past, especially when I first started testosterone, like it was really easy to get on HRT. I went to Planned Parenthood. I had one appointment where I had to like sign an informed consent packet, and then I had an appointment a week later, and they gave me my first shot.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, like it was so much easier to get it, you know? And I think, sorry, let me try and gather my thoughts here. There's a point that I'm trying to make. I'm just not sure how to get there. Basically, what I'm trying to say is like, I really appreciate how there has been recently kind of an uptick in, you know, advocacy for trans people and advocacy for trans healthcare accessibility. I just wish that there wasn't that caveat, that add-on where, oh, even though it's becoming more accepted now, like the hate for it has also become more public.
Exactly. And the restrictions on it are just going to increase, I think.
It's like, it's like we take, you know, one step forward and then 300 steps back almost.
That's very true. And definitely harkens back to what we were talking about in the beginning about like liberal ideology being popular in an area, then the conservative ideology is also gonna be just as loud.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of who can shout louder.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like to give up sometimes. No, I guess what I'm saying is like,
that's a little bit dark.
No, yeah. I don't like to like get in fights with people anymore about stuff like that. That was something that used to like random drunk guys would say some bullshit to me. This is a tangent, but
Go ahead.
Yeah, I used to get like really angry if men, usually the men, would be like transphobic towards me when I'm out, or like say weird shit to me about how I'm not a man, because, you know, and I used to like really fight back and let it really overtake me. But now I'm at a point, probably because I pass more and feel more at home and peace in my body also.
Right.
I'm at a point where I just kind of want them to just exit and not interact with that. And that had something to do with, who can shout louder?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost, you know,
it's all up to policy and legislation or whatever.
Yeah.
Who can vote more? I don't know. The system's getting broken.
At this point, I don't even think voting works, you know?
Yeah.
Like, not to get too political on here or anything, but I really don't believe anymore that America is a democracy, but it's a conversation for
that's true.
a different time maybe. But yeah, it's just, I think at this point, I'm more about, because I was like that too when I was early on in my transition. I wanted to fight anybody who said anything bad about trans people. I was always, you know, picking fights online. I was always commenting back, like, you know, real snarky, you know. And now it's just a matter of like, I just want to protect my peace. You know, I don't want to.
Yeah, you get to a point where you have, where
it's just tiring. I've had the same conversation about me never being a real man, or my chromosomes will never change. I've had that same conversation over and over. I'm just tired.
I like don't really have words like to even respond to that. I just like that the fact that people say, like, it's not about chromosomes, like,
but to them it is.
It could be, for, even if it isn't, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, it's dumb as hell.
It really is. It is dumb as hell, bro. Well, I don't have any further questions for you or anything like that. You know, is there anything else that you have, like any closing remarks that you'd like to say to anybody that's listening at home or anything like that?
Well, I have one last question / topic that I want to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit me with it.
How do you feel about the word queerbaiting? Like, how do you feel about the concept? Do you think it's real? It exists? And
that's a good question.
How do you feel about it? Does it make you feel like good that people are experimenting with themselves and opening up, or do you feel a little like frustrated? At least I know I kind of do sometimes, with like what feels kind of like appropriation of queerness and profiting off of it, and then kind of disrespecting who it came from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I definitely see where you're coming. This is a great question. I definitely see where you're coming from in terms of like people appropriating queer culture almost. I remember there was a massive, like, not a trend on TikTok, because it's not trendy really. People have been doing it for years, but there was a massive like uptick, I guess, in cis guys, mainly cis-sexual cis and heterosexual guys on TikTok. They were posting about like painting their nails. They were posting about like wearing dangly earrings. They were posting about, oh, look, I thrifted a skirt from Goodwill and now I'm going to wear a skirt. Or, oh, I thrifted this women's t-shirt. It's just a t-shirt, but they bought it out of the women's section. So they thought they were doing something revolutionary. And then everybody and their mom was coming up and everybody was up in arms and saying, that's not like, you know, you're not doing anything groundbreaking. Queer people have been doing that for years. I do agree with that. Okay. It's not groundbreaking. People have been painting their nails for years, and men have been wearing makeup for years. You're not doing anything new. So I'm not going to applaud you for that. However, and this kind of ties into like a larger conversation from my perspective, but I do believe that there is a big problem like now with TikTok and platforms like that getting so large. People will take buzzwords like queerbaiting or trauma, or, you know, gaslighting, thank you, and they will just blow it out of proportion. Yeah, and they'll take words like that and they will use it for any fucking thing. So I do agree that queerbaiting is a thing. However, I feel like the word queerbaiting has been taken out of context, and now people don't understand what actual queerbaiting really is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so like, what would you say queerbaiting is, and what would you say it isn't, if anything? Because I struggle with that sometimes too, because like I work in retail,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of queer guys come in and a lot of straight guys come in.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the lines get blurred, and I'm like, those guys are acting really straight. Obviously, these are assumptions that
Right.
I'm just making with my own gaydar. But
Right.
since I have one of those.
Of course. It's our duty.
Yeah, I'm like, they're acting really straight, and they're looking at me kind of like they're not giving me good energy.
Right.
But they have a pearl necklace, and they're wearing like all this jewelry and like, I don't know, just kind of fruity vibes. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
right. They're a little
I'm starting
zesty,
to
as the
get
kids say
very
nowadays.
confused out here. Is this for
Yeah.
the girls or is this for the gays?
Are you looking at me because you're judging my outfit, or are you looking at me because you're judging my sexuality? Like,
or because you want me? There's a lot going on.
yes,
here.
there's
And
a
I
lot going on
figure
behind
it
the
out.
scenes, I think. I don't know. Personally, I feel like queerbaiting in media specifically, that's typically how I would use the term queerbaiting when it comes to
Yeah.
media. If you want, we want to use another hot button topic here. Harry Styles. Okay, love him. I'm a huge Harry Styles fan. Okay, and there is a massive discourse surrounding him and how he presents himself to the public. People say that he is queerbaiting because he has said in interviews in the past, that he's experimented with men, he's done things with men and women. He has songs that he's written in the lyrics where he sings about doing things with men. Some people say that his song "She" is actually about his feminine side and how he wants to present himself to the public, but he feels like he can't. All that stuff. And so I feel.
That sounds very authentically queer.
Yeah, like I feel as if whenever people use the term queerbaiting to describe how Harry Styles presents himself, that's, to me, is wrong. I don't think he's queerbaiting. I think he is held back from maybe his manager or his contract or whatever. So he's not queerbaiting. He's just literally not capable, for whatever reason, of presenting himself the way that he wants to. But if you want to talk about queerbaiting in the sense of like TV shows where they kind of hint at a character being gay all through the season, and then in the last 2 episodes they get into a heterosexual relationship. That is queerbaiting. That is harmful to me. That's kind of where I draw the line on someone actually queerbaiting versus someone just not being able to express themselves, or someone who's just experimenting.
I really appreciate you putting that into those words for me, because I didn't even know how I really felt about it. And I feel like I needed to discuss that with another queer person to know like where they feel is like what's violent or harmful to them, and what is like something that's chill towards them. And I agree with you. Yeah, people talk a lot about Harry Styles. And
yeah, he's I don't know. He's always under the public eye.
I think. Is it like cis girls with a lot of gay male best friends that say he's queerbaiting? I don't know. It's getting a little convoluted now.
I only recently became like a big Harry Styles fan. Thanks to my girlfriend. She's been, she's been a fan since his One Direction days. So I only recently hopped on the train here.
But I kind of fell off after One Direction.
Yeah, I mean, I was always the type of person who said, to the public, "Oh, One Direction, that's dumb. Like, I don't listen to that." And then I would listen to their music in my bedroom in secret. So I'm a little bit more open with my love for their music now. But from what I've seen, it does appear to me like a lot of the people who slam Harry Styles for queerbaiting, or slam Harry Styles for being a little too fruity, because there's 2 sides of the spectrum of the hate that he receives. On either side, it does seem like it is cis heterosexual girls, like teenage girls, who are shitting on him. There's one side of it where people are shitting on him for not just coming out and saying, "Oh, I'm gay. Oh, I'm bisexual. Oh, I'm pan," what have you. Whatever he is, people are mad at him for not coming out and being open about his sexuality or his gender in explicit terms. On the other hand, you have people who are mad at him for not toning it down. They say, "Oh, he's doing too much." Since he hasn't explicitly come out, we're going to assume that he's just cis and heterosexual. So he needs to stop trying so hard to be queer or appear queer.
Which raises a whole nother topic about like, should we have to come out in order to be accepted? Like, why is it not okay for Harry to just be who he is and not have to tell anyone? Like,
why do you have to dig into his personal life?
Why do we have to know what he is in order for him to express himself or themselves in the way that this person does.
No, I totally agree with you. It is so like, oh God, I hate saying this because I don't want to sound like a fucking boomer or millennial, but I truly believe that this generation, this is going to sound so cringy, but I believe it, is too obsessed with labels.
Yeah.
There, I said it. I put it out there. Because it feels almost as if, and this is especially when it comes to, you know, larger influencers or celebrities who are in the public eye a lot more than just like, you know, your average Joe. People are so obsessed with labeling them so that if the celebrity wants a little bit more privacy, or if they want to be a little bit more ambiguous about their sexuality or their identity, people slam the shit out of them. They want to label them.
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I'd be Googling sometimes, like, is this person queer? And then all on Google, it'll be like all these different articles. And I'm like, damn, everybody's asking the same question?
Yeah, like
I mean, that's a little gnarly. It's a little much. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is a lot of obsession, not only with labeling, but also with like celebrities in general. Like celebrity culture is so massive. Like you see people like the Kardashians in their reality shows and stuff. You get to see almost every aspect of their personal lives, and so I feel like people are a little bit spoiled with how much they know about certain celebrities, and they feel like that should apply to everybody. And you know, you can't just go up to somebody and ask, what are you? What's your sexuality? You're not entitled to that information from me.
Yeah, personally, as a like consumer or like as an audience member of celebrity culture, I would rather hear a lot less about everybody's life. Like, you know, I think we're meant to kind of like not really know what everybody else is doing. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I think there is a big issue with, you know, consumer culture, like you said, and just like celebrity culture in general. Because, I mean, maybe who cares? Maybe that celebrity is queer in some way, but why does it matter to us? Like, why do we need to know that?
Yeah.
Stop making queer people a spectacle, you know?
Yeah.
Man. Man, we covered a lot of really good topics. We got a little bit on a tangent there at the end, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm really glad that you asked me that question. I haven't really thought about the term queerbaiting in a while.
And like, I don't really know how to bring it up around like my queer friends, but like, I know I can't really bring that up around straight people because they'll be like, wait, what?
Yeah, they don't really understand. Like,
they're not really the people to ask.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was talking to you.
Yeah, it's been really great. I want to say thank you again for joining me here today. I had a great time. Like I said, I think we covered a ton of great topics, some stuff that I hadn't previously thought about that I might add on in future episodes. So you might have started a trend there. So I don't have anything else to say. Any other questions for you? So yeah, thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me. And I love the content you create. I'm thankful that you have the platform that you do and that I can support you and that other people like me can support you. Keep doing what you're doing. You're very inspiring.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's such kind words. You're going to make me blush. Stop it.
Girl, I'm always blushing because I'm on Accutane.
I'm always blushing because I'm ginger. So I just have a lot of
I think I'm becoming ginger slowly. So, yeah.
That happens. I've heard people say that happens to them on tea.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, serious. People say that they their hair like lightens. People turn ginger. People say that their hair changes like texture.
I think I am turning ginger. People are pointing that out. Like,
good, join us.
Yeah, honestly.
We need more. Come on.
Yeah, gingers get a bad rap, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. I will let you go. I won't hold you here for very long. Thank you again for joining me here today. Everyone else, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here for this week's episode. I hope to see you in next week's episode. Bye, guys.